Galactic date 94216A. Location: high orbit over Peleus 3 Earth. Ship: Vorthree Diplomatic. Vessel: Path of Reason. Ambassador Zilrin of the Unified Galactic Concord had faced warlords, negotiated peace between ancient enemies, and even survived an assassination attempt from the Collier Expanse. But never, not once in his long, storied career, had he felt true fear. Not until now. He was staring down at Earth, and it was staring back at him. The planet was wrong. Its land masses were scarred by wounds the size of continents, mountains crushed by tectonic violence, deserts carved out by planet-spanning storms. Its oceans churned with hurricanes so large they could swallow lesser planets. Even from orbit, he could see wildfires spreading in vast tendrils across a landmass, yet the species below did not flee. They rebuilt. They fought. They adapted. It was unthinkable. Planets like this were red zones, designated uninhabitable by every advanced species in the galaxy. No civilization could possibly emerge in such conditions. And yet humanity had, and worse, they had thrived. Zilrin turned his attention to the real reason for his visit: the aftermath of the Zha'Korr War. The Dominion had attacked this world with full force. Not a simple planetary raid, an extermination campaign. They had expected a quick victory, as they always did. Instead, Earth had torn them apart. The Dominion's weapons had been useless. Their war beasts, genetically engineered to terrify and slaughter, had been hunted for sport. Their shock troops, bred for endurance, had collapsed under human perseverance. For every human city the Zha'Korr destroyed, the humans turned the rubble into a fortress. For every inch of ground the Dominion claimed, the humans filled it with bodies and took it back tenfold. Even orbital bombardments, planet glassers that should have left nothing but molten rock, failed. Humanity had built underground shelters deep enough to weather extinction itself. In the end, the Zha'Korr retreated. No, they fled. And for the first time in recorded history, an empire of conquerors had been forced into a defensive war. Not because humanity was more advanced, not because they had better weapons, but because they simply refused to die. Now, Zilrin was here to do the impossible. He was here to negotiate. The Unified Galactic Concord had survived millennia by maintaining peace. The great empires had always respected its diplomatic authority. But for the first time, it was not the Concord setting the terms. It was humanity. A voice crackled over the communicator, rough, scarred, and full of that unsettling human confidence. Diplomatic vessel Path of Reason. This is Captain Elias Cade of the Terran Defense Initiative. You will lower your shields and follow the designated flight path. Any deviation will be seen as an act of aggression. There was no arrogance in his tone, no unnecessary threats, just a simple, undeniable fact. If you resist, you will not survive. Zilrin shuddered. Even the Zha'Korr warlords hadn't spoken like that. He complied. The human military escort locked onto his vessel, guiding him through the atmosphere. As they descended, his sensors struggled to adapt. The magnetic storms, the sheer density of the planet's gravity, well, his ship's stabilizers groaned in protest. And yet, below him, entire cities thrived in this madness. His translator beeped. Incoming message. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. Hope you like a challenge. As he stepped onto human soil, Zilrin realized something deeply unsettling. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were the apex of something the galaxy had never seen before. They did not fear war. They did not fear suffering. They did not fear extinction, because they were born in it. The war had not made them stronger. They had always been this way. Zilrin knew, in that moment, why the Zha'Korr Dominion would never recover, why the galaxy would never be the same. because humanity would never be conquered. And now they were looking for allies. At the unified Galactic Concord headquarters, the chamber was silent, a silence thick with dread, the kind that only came when something unthinkable had been spoken into reality. Ambassador Zilrin had just finished his report, and now the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in stunned, horrified contemplation of a single, undeniable truth. Humanity was not an anomaly. They were a warning. The Council had long known of Deathworlds, planets too hostile for civilization to flourish. No intelligent species had ever survived on one. The very concept was ludicrous. And yet, not only had humans survived on Earth, they had thrived in ways that defied reason. Even the mighty Zha'Korr Dominion, who had ruled through conquest for centuries, had been shattered like glass against a diamond wall. Now the remnants of that once feared empire were holed up in the fringes of the galaxy, licking their wounds. The humans had been expected to defend themselves. Instead, they had hunted their invaders to the stars. And that was what terrified the Council the most. They had all assumed humans were reactive, that their aggression was mere self-preservation. But the latest reports told a different story. Human warships, reverse engineering Zha'Korr technology, were now pushing into Dominion territory. The hunters had become the hunted. Humanity was not just retaliating. They were expanding, and they were winning. Counselor Threx of the Choric Union broke the silence first. His exoskeletal fingers clicked anxiously against the table. This is a disaster. His mandibles quivered as he spoke. We should have intervened earlier. This species should never have been allowed to exist. Zilrin's voice was calm. You would have eradicated them? Threx hesitated. If we had known what they were, perhaps. Murmurs of agreement and unease rippled through the chamber. Counselor Vera of the Sylvani Protectorate, a species renowned for their diplomacy, interjected, her green bioluminescent veins pulsing with anxiety. And yet, we did not. Her voice was tight. They are here. And now we must ask ourselves, what happens next? Counselor Vashta of the Dralith Enclave, an elder species known for their deep strategic wisdom, spoke slowly. The humans have never known peace. His reptilian eyes flickered. We must give them a reason to desire it. Counselor Threx scoffed. And how do you propose we do that? Their entire existence is struggle. Even if they had no enemies, they would fight the planet itself just to prove they could win. Another silence. Zilrin leaned forward, his eyes sweeping across the gathered representatives. There is a greater question here, he said. The chamber turned toward him. Zilrin's next words changed the course of history. You fear them. It was not a question. The tension in the room deepened. But tell me, Zilrin continued, if humanity is what we fear most, if they are the apex survivors of this galaxy, the ones who rise no matter how many times they are struck down. His next words were calculated. Would you rather have them as allies or as conquerors? Meanwhile, on the edge of the Zha'Korr remnant territory, a human fleet was preparing for battle. Aboard the TDS Ironwheel, Admiral Valeria Holt studied the latest recon reports. The remaining Dominion forces were digging in, fortifying what was left of their empire. It wouldn't matter. The humans had adapted to their technology. Their ships were now faster, stronger, and built for prolonged warfare. The Dominion had tried to wipe Earth off the map. Now Earth was returning the favor. Her comms officer turned to her. Admiral, we've got an incoming transmission. Zha'Korr forces demand we retreat from their space or face utter destruction. A chuckle rippled through the bridge. Every human officer knew what that meant. They'd heard it before. And every time, the ones making the threat had ended up as nothing but debris drifting through the void. Admiral Holt smirked. Send them a message. The comms officer grinned. What do you want to say? She leaned back, arms crossed, unbothered, unshaken, unstoppable. Her words were simple. Run. At Zha'Korr Prime, the last fortress, the sky burned. For the first time in their history, the Zha'Korr, the once great conquerors of the stars, were not the invaders. They were the hunted. The humans had come with fire and steel, not for plunder, not for conquest, but for justice. And the Zha'Korr had no idea how to fight an enemy who refused to fear them. The last of the Zha'Korr High Command stood in the Citadel's war room, their carapace-covered bodies twitching in panic. On the massive holo display, human ships descended to the atmosphere like the wrath of a dying sun. Black, jagged warships, not elegant, not beautiful. They were weapons, built for a singular purpose, to end wars permanently. Overlord Vroomak slammed his claws into the console, snarling. They are just primitives. They were supposed to be extinct. General Exadrath, his face marred by scars from the failed invasion of Earth, growled in frustration. Their weapons are better than ours now. They are learning. Vroomak turned, eyes wild with fear. Then we must surrender. Exadrath's mandibles curled in disgust. We are the Dominion. We do not surrender. A shrill alarm screamed through the war room. A new signal appeared on the holo display, a direct transmission from the human flagship. With shaking claws, Vroomak accepted the transmission. A human appeared on screen, a female, scarred, cold, unflinching. Admiral Valeria Holt. She leaned forward, staring through the transmission as if she could reach through and break them herself. Your war is over. Vroomak's mandibles twitched. His voice trembled. We can negotiate. No. The word was absolute, final. Earth did not negotiate when your fleets rained fire upon our cities, she continued. Earth did not beg when your soldiers butchered our families. She leaned forward. Her voice was death-given sound. And we will not negotiate now. Exadrath roared in fury, slamming his fist onto the war table. Then you are no better than us human. Holt's expression didn't change. You still don't understand. The screen split into multiple live feeds. Human drop pods crashed into the Zha'Korr capital. Elite infantry emerged like specters from the smoke, weapons humming with power. In the skies, human fighters ripped apart enemy warships with pinpoint precision, their attacks merciless, calculated. And then came the ground forces, not mindless, cannon fodder soldiers, not biologically engineered monstrosities, but hunters, survivors, Deathworlders. They fought like nothing the Zha'Korr had ever seen. They used the wreckage of fallen ships as cover, turning the Dominion's own failures against them. They moved with ruthless efficiency, taking down command nodes first, severing supply lines, cutting off escape routes before the enemy even knew they were trapped. This wasn't war. It was a reckoning. Vroomak's claws trembled as he watched the slaughter unfold. Please, our younglings. Holt's eyes remained cold. We are not monsters, she said. We will spare your civilians. Relief flooded Vroomak's body. Then Holt spoke again. But your warlords? Your generals? Her expression turned into something darker. They die today. Exadrath lunged at the console in a final act of defiance, screeching something in his native tongue. Holt simply tilted her head. Then the transmission cut out, replaced by a live feed of orbital bombardment beginning. One by one, the fortresses fell. The great spires of Zha'Korr Prime crumbled. The homeworld of the Dominion burned. And humanity did not stop until it was over. 1 week later, the war was finished. The Zha'Korr Dominion, which had ruled with fear for centuries, was gone. Their leaders were dead. Their armies were ash. Their fleets were scattered remnants, fleeing into the void. And then came the final blow. The unified Galactic Concord, in a desperate attempt to contain the nightmare they had witnessed, summoned humanity to an emergency summit. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as Admiral Valeria Holt herself stood before them, unapologetic, unbroken. She spoke only one sentence that would forever alter the balance of power. We are done fighting for survival. She let that settle before delivering the promise that sent chills through the highest rulers of the cosmos. Now, we fight for the future. The transmission ended, and across the stars, for the first time in history, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to fear humanity.